When storms pass, new life begins. For the world's 46 least developed countries, LDCs, survival often means living through endless storms, climate shocks, conflict, or fragile economies. In April 2025, one of these countries, Zambia, became the launchpad for an escalated effort aimed at addressing the challenges facing the world's most struggling economies. The LDC Future Forum opened on 1st April 2025 in Lusaka, and with it, a new chapter began. This was the first time an LDC was hosting the Future Forum.
Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, the theme of this year's forum, Enhancing Resilience, is timely and requires our urgent attention. For LDCs, building resilience is not a choice, but a necessity. The realities are sobering. LDCs contribute just 3.3% of global greenhouse gas emissions, yet they bear a disproportionate burden of climate impacts. Excellencies, these challenges are daunting, yes, yet LDCs possess immense potentials for transformation. With the right policies, investments, and partnerships, we can build a more resilient, inclusive, and sustainable future for the 1.2 billion people living in the 44 LDCs.
Key international and regional leaders underscored the importance of collective action in tackling challenges such as climate change, debt vulnerability, and global economic instability.
Through initiatives such as the Global Network of Regional Sustainable Energy Centers, UNIDO and our partners have facilitated the deployment of renewable energy technologies, enhanced energy access, and promoted energy efficiency in LDCs.
Systemic shocks such as droughts, floods, and economic downturns hit least developed countries the hardest. But Lusaka's LDC Future Forum was a turning point, laying the foundation for lasting solutions.
In terms of environmental shocks, the increasing impacts of climate change have resulted in our countries experiencing droughts, floods, cyclones, and rising sea levels due to climate change, and the agriculture-dependent economies suffer severe crop losses, leading to food insecurity. We are the nations and the countries that have the most hungry people. And these most hungry people, they are too susceptible to become the most angry people. And that can create instabilities in our states. That's why we have gathered here to discuss how we can enhance our resilience. Noting our role as Malawi as LDC's chair under the UNFCCC, I would like to take this opportunity to address the question of status of COP30 negotiations and the progress on securing increased climate finance for LCDs. We call for urgent scaling up of adaptation finance, and at the same time, most of the finance, as alluded to, is about loans. Most of our expenditures as countries is also on debt payment. We need, through you, Your Excellency, and the respective leaders of LDCs, to ensure that at least this is enhanced.
Over 200 delegates from more than 50 countries discussed efforts on how to turn challenges into opportunity, from reducing debt burdens to preparing for the impact of climate change.
Today, Finland is known worldwide as a stable, modern, and competitive country, with high-tech innovations, good schools, equal opportunities for men and women. This has not always been the case. About 100 years ago, at the dawn of our independence, Finland was a poor, fragile state, a rural, developing country with a small family farms and large landless population. Only 5% of the population received more than very basic education at school. Building resilience has been one of the cornerstones in Finland's own development story. Based on our experience, we are keen to link Finnish innovations to LDC countries' efforts in enhancing the resilience. I have with me here in the delegation Finnish companies and actors with specific know-how and comprehensive set of solutions in this field. Overall, Finland's objective is to emphasize the links between trade and development, and in the coming years this will be demonstrated when we implement the Doha Programme of Action together.
Zambia's envoy to the UN in New York was part of the forum in Lusaka and observed the need for Zambia to remain active in the global arena, emphasizing the need to sustain the country's leadership role in different discussions, whether it's climate change or financing for development in Africa.
This is a very important conference, the third LDC conference, the Future Forum. We have been collaborating with Finland on this project, on this conference, and so far we've been able to attract the conference to Zambia, the first time that it's been held in a developing country, so that we can have our voice heard. And this is really where it begins, that as least developed countries, we must be able to work together, we must be able to sing from the same hymn sheet, we need to be strategic in our engagement. What is very clear is that the world is going through various shocks, climatic shocks. We're seeing environmental shocks, and there are shocks of other kinds. Currently, we're going through more or less a policy shock, economic shock. And so as developed countries, we have to be strategic, and it's conferences like this where we can have an exchange of views. The primary objective of this conference really is to have an exchange on different practices, policies, and strategies on how to build resilience. Now, the conference every year has a different theme. This year we're focusing on the issue of building resilience. Very, very relevant for Zambia, given that we've just gone through a major drought. The question is, what policies can other countries learn from how we approached the issue of drought? How to save livelihoods as a priority, and how to also invest in long-term resilience, whether it's building dams, water reticulation, things of that nature. Even social cash programs is one way that we approach the issues. We're also learning from others how they have approached the issue of building resilience, whether it's resilience to climate shocks, whether it's resilience to economic shocks, but more resilience generally.
LDCs are easily affected by problems like natural disasters, climate change, or economic shocks. These countries face serious challenges in income, education, health, and economic stability. LDCs are therefore countries that are given special international support to help them develop, reduce poverty, to become more stable and self-reliant over time.
As Zambia, of course, will continue to grow. I believe that we've had a growth trajectory of 3 years so far, 4 years for 2024. We hope that if we can continue to push ahead with growth of above 5% consistently, we will reach the point where we have to have an assessment of our performance, our institutions, and our vulnerability. And on that basis, because those are the basic criteria, economic vulnerability index as to whether we can graduate from LDCs. However, we have to be prepared, because graduation has certain implications as regards your access to external markets. LDCs have got a privileged position when it comes to exporting their goods to more advanced markets. And so when you graduate, you effectively lose that status, that privilege. Also, LDCs, in some cases, get more concessional financing. And so as you graduate, the cost of borrowing becomes higher. What we generally call for is for a gradual increase in your cost of financing, so that your cost of borrowing does not escalate all of a sudden when you graduate. So graduation is like a two-edged sword, right? It has important benefits because you're basically growing, but it comes as a cost. So you need to manage both sides to the best of your ability as a country.
As global challenges persist, least developed countries remain determined to turn vulnerabilities into opportunities for a more sustainable and resilient future.
We have developed a strategy for nationally determined contributions in terms of greening the economy by being able to come up with a framework that will help us to be able to determine what is our contribution as a country in terms of the green discourse, and what is it that we are contributing to the global system in terms of conserving the environment, and what value does that have. That would also be able to generate some resources using our local initiative and our local frameworks for generating or inviting investments into the various sectors of our economy from that perspective. You are also aware that as a country, we have embarked on public-private partnerships as one of the strategies to generate financing. We have a number of projects that we have identified which are planned to be implemented using smart approaches. And we are also engaging partners who could come on board through the PPP arrangement to implement these projects that can bring forth some economic benefits to the country.
For the first time, an LDC hosted the Future Forum, and from Lusaka, hope echoed across borders. Resilience is not just about bouncing back, it's about moving forward together. President Hakainde Hichilema officially opened the forum not just as a host, but as a leader determined to make Zambia a symbol of resilience and innovation on the continent of Africa. Recognized across Africa as one of the leading voices for sustainable development, President Hichilema did more than just welcoming guests. He called on fellow African leaders to be more accountable, to take charge, and to build strong economies from within.
I want to express absolute gratitude, Madam, and our friends in Finland, for allowing us as Zambia to host this forum. It started as a request, just a mere request. We in Cabinet chatted about it, and we tasked some of my Cabinet colleagues that are seated here and there to work with the UN family, to reach out to you, to work with the colleagues in Finland, that why don't we host this least developed countries forum in one of our countries? And here we are today. Thank you for honoring Zambia. Thank you very much to all of you. Let me talk about Zambia briefly. Last year experienced the worst drought in living memory. And so we had to do certain things in order to save lives, protect our people. Immediate things, obvious things. Support to our population, food. Because when the drought came, one bad drought decapitated us in many areas, but primarily created food insecurity. 1, 2, created energy insecurity. From a food surplus country, just a year earlier, to a food deficit country, once the drought has done its damage. From an energy exporter surplus to an energy importer. Just 1 year of drought. We had to take those measures, yes, feed our people. Long cabinet meetings to decide how best to do it. But the important thing we did first was to declare the disaster and emergency early and not wait. By February in the year, we had already done it. I'm aware that a couple of countries still waited, and they only declared theirs maybe 4-5 months later. And the damage was done already. So we declared our drought, disaster, and emergency early. Some of my cabinet colleagues said, Mr. President, are you not moving too fast? I said, you want to wait until the cost is too high? We do it now to trigger measures that will enable us to save our population from dying of hunger. Because most of them produce food. As you heard from her, most of our economies in the least developed countries are anchored on agriculture. Most of our population, the jobs are agriculture. So you can only imagine that if these will produce food for themselves first, with all the issues you indicated, Madam, first low levels of productivity to poor post-harvest management leading to post-harvest losses. All of these issues. And poor habits in terms of storing food for family consumption at a household level. All of these issues. So now, we took that decision. What else did we do? First ourselves, before asking for support from others, I said to the Minister of Finance, now, let's review the budget. Now, not tomorrow. Let us review the budget to move resources. The resource envelope is limited from other areas that were deserving before the drought, but they are not deserving now. Not in that literal sense, but in the sense that there's a burning platform. There's a higher need to feed our people. So we went ahead to review the budget, reorganize the budget, and went to Parliament to get our budget, revised budget approved, which was now creating resources within our envelope, limited envelope.
Across 3 days, researchers, business minds, and UN partners all gathered with a common goal.
We need to find ways of ensuring that multiple crises do not bring people into extreme poverty over and over and over. And we know that there's almost 300 million people in the world that are just one shock away from falling into poverty constantly, every year. And this is a situation that is unsustainable.
Resilience is not just about bouncing back, it's about moving forward together. From climate change to debt relief, from innovation to global partnerships, Lusaka showed what happens when nations on the margins come together.
It requires all partners to come on board. The private sector, the government side, the UN are all working together. We also had the opportunity to hear from the public sector and how the public sector has helped that process, and the exchange of learning between countries, how that has also helped countries really move into the graduation phase. So exchanging experiences, learning from each other, I think comes out as a strong step towards graduation from the LDC status. And then the whole area of financing for development came out as very strong. And using various streams for financing for development and ensuring that LDCs really take advantage of those financing instruments, the new approaches. In that, there was also a call for LDCs to really ensure that they participate in the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development that will be happening in Spain, and really ensure that their voice is heard. Also, another plea that LDCs also participate in all the negotiations when it comes to climate change to ensure that their voices are also heard.
One of the principal objectives is to bring together all stakeholders here, especially researchers, academics, policymakers, all of them come here and speak more based on evidence-based discussion. So the information, the discussions are certainly based on evidence because these are all based on, we actually commissioned many reports leading up to the Future Forum. So there were many reports also that came out. The researchers did the reports. They were called for reports addressing specific themes that we had under at this forum. The theme of this forum was particularly relevant and timely, I would say. It was on building resilience, and I think that's the catchword now in the global situation that we are facing now with multiple crises, whether it's climate, economic, health. I think it is extremely important and urgent that the resilience of the LDCs are built. While the LDCs have a range of course, structural and institutional other problems and challenges, I would say challenges, it is also true, as I said, as we also heard from the President himself, and as I also said in my opening statement on Tuesday, there are also numerous potentials in the LDCs. I think one of the biggest resources the LDCs have, the 44 LDCs have, the 1.2 billion people that make up the 44 LDCs, are the young population. And that is very enviable. You have a young, vibrant population here in the LDCs, ready to meet the future. And I think they sort of represent talent, enthusiasm, energy, power, and I think we need to harness that youth resources that we have in the LDCs.
In a key bilateral meeting on the sidelines of the Future Forum, Finland offered to help Zambia rise from the status of being an LDC country by supplying machinery, recycling technology, and tools for economic growth.
We have online measuring technologies for tailing treatment dams, which would actually keep everybody updated with the safety of those tailing dams. And also we're engaging in a cooperation agreement with various of the regulators within Zambia and talking to obviously the ministries involved to get that cooperation agreement. In addition, we are working very closely in this particular case with Sino Metals to ensure that we're able to produce a safe tailing, slurry and water that can be recycled or discharged into the river.
I think it's important that we get to know issues that stand in our way so that we work on them. And so we checklist all of those things, what we're doing with Nokia. All I'm saying is that the things we're doing already, the things we plan to do, we all get to know. I would like my presidential delivery unit to be also involved in that summary, and then the public-private dialogue forum which we have, where you can also utilize those platforms to look for partners when you need partners. I think that way, it's just the way I like to work. So that's why I'm insisting that if it's agreed, Minister, and my colleagues here, I know they will agree that we have a small team this side and this side to checklist these things, and when work on an action plan, we get things done with time-bound activities.
In Lusaka, the world saw something more for least developed countries. Discussions ranged from economic diversification to climate adaptation and technological transformation, all aimed at securing a more equitable future for least developed countries. A future being rewritten.